Welcome back, everybody, to the VESL. Once again, back this week with more Valorant action here on a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. My name's Infernosis, joined here by my good friend here, Jake, who, shockingly enough, I did not know that was your tag there below your name right there. I just know you as Jake, of all things. Yeah. But we have a good selection of 4 teams actually stepping up to the plate today with highlights from 4 more teams on top of that, which I think is actually just 3 more teams on top of that. There's a couple repeats here and there, but it's a good day for Valorant, so let's why not show it off.
Yeah, most certainly is. We are watching over some teams that we not only saw last week, but teams we are going to be accustomed to today. Some fantastic teams ahead of us. Like you said, we got highlights from 2 matches that didn't necessarily go as everybody planned. Some 4v5 situations, awkward times, but we get to show out players who made some fantastic plays. But the 2 matches we are going to be spectating over today, we're going to be starting out with Northside High versus Washington High on the map Split. And then we got New Bern versus Havelock after that. 2 teams who we spectated over last week. And I'm very excited to watch them play each other because some very solid teams. But starting out with 2 new ones today on the map Split, we should be getting into Agent Select very shortly.
Yeah, you got a lot of expectations you're laying to the lap of that second series we'll have going on the chopping block. We'll have to see if it does actually match up to what we're expecting from last week's performances, or if we'll see it kind of fall a little bit short. Hopefully that's not the case. This first one, though, I got to get through, though it is still I won't say it's no slacker in the department for these 2 teams performance-wise. Northside versus this Washington roster. I have to expect that since we're on the map of Split, it should be a pretty dominated first half. It typically works out to be a really dominant first half for one of these teams, and then it flips over to the other half, and then it's a pretty poor performance. That's Split. It's not these players. It's not the teams. It's just Split tends to be really one-sided for one side over the other. And the crazy part is, if it's high school, it's defense. If it's college, it's offense. And it's never truly known which side it's going to be. It feels like it's all over the place. But the agent selections, now this, Jake, could give us a good inkling about which side may be getting their golden goose egg here first. So we do see some different choices for both of these sides.
Yeah, we got ciphers on both ends, which is something you definitely expect here on Split. Those cipher trips and the cam can be so powerful, especially on a map like this where those chokes can be so, very tight, especially over there on the B side of the map. We see a Viper from Washington, which I'm surprised not to see one from the opposite end. But, hey, I mean, I'm sure you can get it by without a Viper on your team to go kind of over those last agents that we didn't necessarily get to talk about. We get a raise from the side of Washington High, which I personally really like. That nade can be so powerful. The boom bot can give you a lot of information, and that showstopper, as always, can be so powerful, especially from the vertical angles that you get on a map like Split. But it should be a very solid one. It's going to be Northside High on the defensive end to start things out. They got the Sage, they got the Cypher. Let's see if they can lock down those sites with those Sentinels.
It really feels old school, right? The Split, prior to getting removed from the competitive pool and then having to be brought back into the competitive pool, was dominated by a lot of Sage play and a lot of Cypher play. It was the Spike cam, it was the Trapwire and the Cypher Cage that really carried the Cypher through a lot of the hold on that A site and B site, predominantly the B site. But it was the Sage controlling Alley inside mid, which for Split tends to be kind of the end-all be-all for the map. If he who controls Split, he who controls Alley in the middle of Split, controls essentially the rest of the tempo for the rest of the round, and theoretically the entirety of the map, because you can rotate so quickly between both objectives. So you're going to see a huge reliance defensively here for Northside, starting off on Naughty to try to secure that attic position. Sorry, not attic. That alley position, close A's, they're pretty similar, to try to make sure that Sage Wall gets placed down. And it's going to be the, I guess, biggest thorn on the side of this Washington High School side in the early rounds, when they only have pistols, when they're starting off in round 1 and round 2, and the weapons they're bringing to the table aren't as effective at clearing that out. It's more of a time sink in these rounds and an information cool in kit to funnel players and realize where they're coming from and how they're coming from in the later rounds. Completely different style for the same piece of utility. It's still so impactful despite the fact that Sage has not been a predominant agent on this map in probably the last 5 or 6 months, it seems.
We do get that Viper wall over on the A side from the side of Washington High, and I like to see them setting up that sort of default, so you're not kind of being obvious with which direction you are going. We do have a lot of B main control from the side of Northside, but it looks like they're playing it slow, playing it patient. They might have saw some sort of Cypher information over there and want to maybe head back over to that mid area. And for the side of mid, that alley that we were talking about so much in this pregame, it is going to be well open for the taking from the side of Washington. Let's see if they can really attack that weak point from Northside, maybe get this bomb down somewhere.
I think Naughty is AFK. That may be one of the reasons why we see a big gaping hole in the theoretical defense of Northside here in terms of alleys to move in from. They do still get first blood off the back of Aqua Boy, who does get 2 before finally falling, retraded back by their doppelganger of Quandale Dingle, who finds 2 of their own in the same fell swoop, now netting this an even 3-on-3, though still arguably a 2-on-3 with Naughty still AFK in defender spawn. It's going to be a lot of work for Andy R2D27 and Pookie, who still are holding quite strong. Pookie evens the odds. Andy with a wide swing up on rafters and a final closure to Quamst as well. Securing Northside despite the 4v5 they had in this first round. A round win nonetheless to secure and get this post-play defuse on B.
And if that doesn't go to show just how defensive-sided Split can be at times, I do not know what does. I mean, Northside had to do a fantastic job of adapting to that B push. Obviously, they give up that middle side area, which should be taken over by that Sage like we were talking about, but the retake is fantastic. The trades are there from the Cypher top heaven, and they're able to kind of attack onto that retake. They do a fantastic job of doing so. Obviously, Naughty still seems to be disconnected from the game, so maybe Washington have the opportunity to maybe win this eco, but it's still going to be a tall task because a lot of ghosts here. We see a bulldog from the side of Northside. Let's see where these kills come from.
This is another one of those rounds you kind of expect for Washington to play it a little bit slower now, realizing that Northside are likely bringing in more reasonable weapons for a second round conversion. Spectres, SMGs, even a Marshall to try and assist at longer range. But with the fact they're still down a player and having only 4 out of the 5 players at any given point really committing to a full buy or a substantial buy for the second round could cause them to be a little bit more hesitant. That's one of the reasons why I think we don't see our Andy R2D27 trying to opting for that. The same thing with Pookie, still wanted to keep with that Sheriff. But that does not mean the Ghost nor the Sheriff are going to be weak in any capacity. They each actually find a kill here early before finally your KO of choice does go down. Followed quickly behind by Aqua Boy in Game Zone, who just couldn't find as substantial of a performance in this round as the team solidified themselves the round prior. Pookie eventually falling alongside them, and it is that Sage of Nani once again just AFK and spawn. It closed out by Awudu, who has already gotten 3 kills for that round, charging up the Seekers as fast as possible for Washington, but that effective speed capitalizing on Northside's complete inability to hold down a site directly because they're kind of in this weird state with Naughty being AFK at this point. That's the right speed and tempo Washington need to work with. It's just kind of a guessing game, Jake, about where they need to head to, which site they need to head to, and how quickly they should hit it. But I think they'll key in, and eventually I think Naughty will return, and that'll alleviate a lot of the concerns that maybe Northside have.
Yeah, and it looks like we paused the game to maybe allow Naughty to get back into this one as soon as possible. You don't want, just a fake game going on here. 4v5 is not really the situation you want to be, and you don't want to win that way, you don't want to lose that way, so getting Naughty in here is definitely the way to go. But at least we're here all tied up at 1 so far. Obviously kind of an awkward situation for Northside because they do lose those guns that they bought, but I'm not sure they wasted too much economy on their end to be able to not buy some sufficient artillery here at this point into the game. But Washington, a solid A push. It keeps that Viper default up, and I just want to harp on why that's so important because a lot of times, especially in in competitive or not necessarily the higher ranks, and in VCT of course, but keeping that Viper wall up at A every single round doesn't give Northside the free information that, hey, okay, we're going this way, because a lot of times if you save that wall for an execute, as soon as you see that wall, the whole team can rotate.
It can be a false kind of symbol of hope, but it can also be that hope that says, hey, we're going to bait them out. We can hide behind this. We can work with this as well. It's a double-sided coin, and both sides of the coin can be just as sharp as the other, and it's a really wonderful piece of utility that's so valuable on every map. And while not a lot of teams still opt to bring out the Viper so consistently on the map of Split anymore, it still has the same kind of, I would say almost the same value as Breeze, minus the so difficult archway entry in towards the C side on that map, or sorry, the B side on that map. Same thing as you have here, trying to exit out towards A on this map. You're gonna have to, value it substantially different. But I mean, how much more can you think about it for Northside here, who don't opt to bring that one out, instead opt to go, hey, we want that jet, we want that brimstone, which, to be frank, Game Zone brought out the brimstone last week as well, as I recognize the name, and I do recognize the operator of choice, the agent of choice, I guess I should say, for Valorant. This is not R6. We were talking about how effective they were on Bind in the previous week, and Maybe they just really like to stick to that controller role when you're talking about the younger ages of players trying to work in towards a competitive side and try to get into that competitive nature and work alongside a roster. A lot of this is comfort picks. And if you can play to the strength of that comfort pick, even if it's not the standard status quo, what you should be bringing to the table for a normalized composition, it can honestly take down a lot of those normal compositions that those players are wildly uncomfortable with how to play it. And that could be one thing we see Northside take advantage of. Having that 0 point, having that KO, big difference for initiating power. Big difference as well with that Sage Ice Wall. That's so old school style of agent selection. I think Northside defensively starting off, if they can get a big enough lead, which is expected for a lot of defending teams for this map, they will have a really good time in that second half when they transition to the attack. But I think they have to get that lead because that initiating power is going to be a lot more stagnant for closing the distance because you don't have that rage, you don't have that toxic screen. And well, in this round, you don't have Quandale Dingle, your Cypher, if you're Washington High School.
Yeah, and that may be not the worst player to lose, but those trips on the flank are going to be gone. Aquaboy with another one onto Sky as well. Looks like Washington, they lose those 2 players and they opt to take some control of the mid space. And while I say good shots out of Northside to open things up, they still leave this middle of the map completely open. And that gives Washington free reign to just fly through this ropes area, and there is nobody on A here.
Yeah, it's a free ground. This is something Northside have been playing into so heavily. It's that retake that they're really trying to highlight for this roster. A lot of that was because they only had 4 players in the previous 2 rounds. They were kind of forced into that mindset, but maybe that's not exactly the case. Maybe they just like playing the retake in general. Pookie swings in close elbow, takes down Nixhorn. Quamps was supposed to be there for the coverage, but the Cloudburst cuts off the sight lines, and that just gives Andy free roam to swing in through the backside of defender spawn, up through into tower, and take down the final 2 remaining players that were supposed to be there for covering fire for Nix down on site. Great round for Northside High School, and another great way to solidify the point that they are here to stay. They actually have rifles going into round 3. And they can maintain those without losing any with a flawless round result heading into round 4, where Washington High School have to kind of make the decision, do we buy up everyone with a rifle, but some people don't have full armor or no armor at all in Cramp's case, or do we kind of sit back? And I think they make the right choice, commit with rifles. You can always save the next round.
You absolutely can. The Viper Ball goes up A side again for Washington, but nobody is going to be home. Going to be peaks toward mid and that B main area, but it looks like they're attacking mid yet again. And what I can say out of Washington is, while they haven't necessarily, they didn't win that last round, but they are consistently picking up that this middle side area is easy for the attack. They are going to be there again, and they're already up into B heaven. Looks like Northside are going to have to win some fights here.
Yeah, this B heaven side's quite dangerous, especially if you can't manage to find refrags. Great shots from Aquaboy, but Quandale Dingle shows up for the refrag and goes above and beyond to get their 3rd kill of this round for the Washington High School roster. A 2v3 now on site, though Quandale Dingle is quite low. Andy's even lower, and Naughty's just the same level of HP. 0 as they're rinsed through by Udo up inside of heaven on that B site. All of that really just given space because of Quandale Dingle wide swinging, having lost the early initiating power that they were really hoping for from that garage side. You have to have a player commit, and apparently it's your Cypher on the that you try to work with here for Washington High School. And if it works, it fits. But where's that Sage, Jake? It's over on the A site in Tower for Northside High School, despite the utility being so much better on B generally, not just in Alley, just in B in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Scott. I think Sage should be angled up maybe toward this B heaven side so you can wall up that middle. If they do go mid, they have to shoot the wall or at least wait for it. And then if they try to sneak in through that B choke, you got the slow orbs to maybe cut them off. But looks like maybe Northside going to have to adapt to that at a later time here because Sage is here at A yet again. You do have the KO ultimate. You have the Cypher ultimate as well. Washington High going to be attacking this A zone, and they have gotten their fair share of space. They trade out that jet. Now they can attack wherever they want, but there's still 2 more Northside players here.
Washington still up on the kills. Knock down Andy. Still the no command is still repping and taking down the util for the Washington High School side. Aquaboy will go down the Cypher cage and attempt to stabilize them, but unfortunately it was a moot point as they'll quickly get their head taken off their shoulders. Now just Game Zone all by their lonesome with 4 players arguably still nearby. Game Zone's really quite too scared to extend out from this angle inside tower. The rest of the team, though, for Washington, they've made their transition. They've made their point stated on that A site. Tower was theirs for the taking, but they don't want A. No, instead, they'll opt to head off towards B. They'll rotate in. They'll take and make use of the alley that they claimed control over early in these rounds. And they'll try to pivot on over fast, successfully so. And they'll even transition to take the cutoff from Game Zone away from them, where they don't even have the rifle up and truly at the ready to fire back. They're caught off guard from the rotate. Northside give up another defending round win. And Washington High School look pretty comfortable considering the free space they're giving off towards alley.
Yeah, and what I really like to see from them so far is their decisive plays here. They're going toward the middle of the map. They run through ropes that round to go toward A. They find the kills, and then they instantly cut back through that middle side area and pick up B heaven, get that bomb down, and find those final kills. They already got 3 on the board. Northside only with 2 to their name. If you get a couple more here for Washington, you've done all you needed to do on the offensive end. But, hey, I mean, you never know. It could not end here. I mean, if you're Northside, I feel like you got to stop the bleeding sooner before later.
Yeah, eventually you'll have to find some sort of saving grace to get your team back in square fitting on this defensive side. Game Zone taking a big lick of damage off the paint shell. I think we'll boost back into the open space in the back side, and this will be free taking for Washington to get this plant down, as Andy is close enough up inside of tower to maybe get a peek in from rafter side, but that dark cover sent by Washington buys enough space and wards Andy off for the time being, especially with the paranoia sent back their way. It seems near irrecoverable for Northside in regards to stopping the spike plant, and that will be confirmed now as it officially is a post-plant scenario for the attacking side of Washington High School. Quamps decimates Andy. Quamps has a secondary chance to find Pookie, but unfortunately can't collect the spray down to deal with them. It's the Blade Storm back in return that deals the final blow in the other direction. As Northside and Nico round, they're still making at least something out of nothing, but this is turning into a mountain instead of a molehill. It's Udo back off towards Pookie, and it's a 2 versus 4, where really if you're Northside, you're playing for an exit frag here, Jake. There's no real chance to step and extend in towards site. You hope you can knock some weapons out of their hands, and the best chance possible to do so is Nick's Horn, having to get that flick, and does so. What a hint for Washington High School.
Yeah, fantastic showing out of Washington so far. They get that bomb down with ease, and they find those frags quite quickly as well. Another thing to point out for them is they have 5 ultimates on the board. You can use any of them in a very solid fashion. I mean, if you're Northside, you almost have to stop the plant at this point, because if Viper gets that bomb down or that spike down, that's going to be an instant ultimate for them, and then that retake becomes about 10 times harder, which is something that they've kind of struggled with so far already. I mean, so much to worry about. You got the Seekers to think about, the Raze Rocket, and the Viper ultimate. Going to be so powerful in these attacking situations. You see the Raze ultimate gets popped. That showstopper. Can you find anything with it? Those trips are there, but the push is still here from Washington.
Feels like there's a big difference as well for claimed space for Northside High School with just the toxic screen off on that A site. Keep in mind, those 2 players that are defending there are being forced back so effectively, and the noise has been made. The ults have been popped. The utility's been expended on the B site. The team should have rotated already, but they're so fearful of the possibility of a rotate, so fearful that the toxic screen is obfuscating something that they have to respect it. And it's a difference between respecting that utility and fearing it, and I genuinely think it's the latter. Northside don't know how to counteract what Washington are bringing to the table, and it leads to rounds like that where they send themselves through to the B site. They flawless the Northside side like we had seen them do in the first round, or sorry, the second round back in return. And it's just an attacking position that shouldn't be granted in this split side because of this Viper purely. And they get away with only having to use 2 major ultimates for it. The showstopper can be used in any round, and they still have it from the Shadows, which has received its substantial buff. It allows for a lot more ideas, and they even have the neural theft for information, which could be even bigger considering that Northside have played so passive, and sometimes it's just about finding where that player is located, Jake.
Absolutely. I mean, Washington are successfully just creating space like they have so far. It's going to be so difficult to kind of fight back if you're Northside. The one saving grace I would say they have is Pookie's been having a fantastic game so far. That Jet has been powerful, no doubt about it, and hopefully if Pookie has some very solid rounds on the board, Northside may be able to convert those. Pookie already gets 1 on the round, but you see Washington, they are flying at that A site. Pookie's still alive, though, but the rotates are not quick.
Pookie wastes the updraft, unfortunately not really even getting any information truly out of it. They had enough, but it wasn't everything they were hoping for. The total snuff in, though, from this A site for Washington. They knew where they had to come from. They transitioned in through security from that tower side that cast them off guard and from elbow. Now it's just a matter of picking apart the remaining players for Northside that have to trickle in behind Pookie's position, as they were doomed to die in the back of sight. Gothic will put down this plant, merely a formality for Washington here. They know that Aqua Boy still has to extend into this space, and the only two places they can do so are locked off and cornered under control for this Washington side. There's your screens player, there's your final kill, and there's your 6th round. Only 2 having fallen to Northside, Jake. You're 6th on the attacking side of Split, and 5 of those have been in a row for your side. This is a momentous point for Washington. They've guaranteed an even spot, and I can't imagine it's going to change when Northside still are facing the same problem we saw so many teams last week run into, not managing their buys well enough, when there's never truly a full rifle buy, and it's really just disjointed round after round.
Yeah, and 2 things you got to look at there is Udu and Quandale Dingle are playing some absolutely fantastic Valorant so far. The whole team, from start to finish, are playing fantastic, but Pookie's trying to get some kills on the other side. You can see Pookie trying to maybe overextend and make something happen for the team, but as soon as Pookie goes down, it's a 4-on-4, and things get a little bit dangerous for Northside already. You see that Washington has that B main control if they so please, and Northside don't seem to be picking up on what's going on here.
They can take A as well. Keep in mind, if they did happen to bring Quandale Dingle off to the A site, you have from the shadows. You can just rotate with the ultimate and go with the 2 players that claim control over that site. It's free reign for Washington. It's truly the world on this map. A Split is their oyster. They can go anywhere they possibly would want to. Where they'll opt to go for now is, hey, we need information. We need a free kill. Let's peek off towards alley with 2 on a double swing. Control that speed, control that zone of the map, and make sure that we can get that neural theft off. It's a use it or lose it territory anyways. We can hope to charge it up again later because he's going absolutely crazy. But Aqua Boy clapping back with their own sort of pizzazz. It's Nixorn off the board. Refragged by Quandale Dingle, who gets their 2nd of this round. Make it a 3rd as Game Zone can't survive despite the dark cover being sent up towards heaven. And now it's only Andy remaining, dishing out some damage, but still too much control over the map in this site of B. It's Washington with a flank and the player in the back of sight. 7 now to their name.
7 on the board, like you said there, Scott. I mean, one thing you can say about Northside High is they should be able to buy some solid utility here. As I say that, it looks like they are kind of going for a half buy, just making sure they can buy the next round. But, I mean, things have just been so rough for them so far. We're talking about Udu and Quandale Dingle, 11-2 and 11-3 respectively. And, I mean, that's some fantastic impact from your Sentinel and your Initiator. You don't necessarily expect a character like Sky or Cypher to be the ones popping off for your team, but hey, that's what's going on right here. One thing you can say, like before, is you do get the suppression there on the A site, so you have that information. It's just a question of what do Northside do to react on it, and it doesn't look like we have any motion from the players just yet, but Washington, they're going to take that time and just fly onto A.
It's the toxic screen. It's too much respect or maybe fear from Northside for that piece of util. You can watch it, you can extend away from it, but you also need to be capable of actually defending against it and playing against it, and I just don't see that right now for Northside. Something they'll need to VOD review, something they'll need to realize is a big weakness for them facing off against those Vipers. It's a plaguing problem for a lot of players, and Northside are running into it here as they'll lose yet another one off towards a player inside tower. It's the Rays for Washington High School that extends to take that space. Udu does eventually get removed by Pookie, but Nixhorn gets a quick spray down of 3. They rotate in from that security side and catch them all off guard, rotating in defender side. Washington now with 8 and full and under control, it seems, of this attacking side. They're not just breaking even, they're going above and beyond, and very well could go 10-2. And I mentioned it, this is statistically a defender favored map, but my goodness, it changes when you're talking about high school and collegiate and pros. It can be attacker favored and it can be defender favored, and for Washington right now, it just seems split favored. We'll see how the second half pans out too.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, the kind of the mistakes I'm seeing from Northside comes from the way they are locating those players. Obviously, the rotates are a little bit slow. That Sage is not throwing that wall up mid, so that middle area is completely open for the taking from the side of Washington. As well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put that Cypher on A, maybe B. There's some things to look at, some VOD to review, like you were saying before there, Scott. But the one thing you can say is you have some ultimates from the side of Northside. That Bremel can really slow down a push. But as you get taken down, I mean, it's yet again, that middle area is being attacked. And now Pookie's all alone and has to make a crazy play. to swing this round in the favor of Northside.
Pookie's impact on Northside can't be understated. They're all over the place. I think, what, 12 kills now to their name? That one being the 12th. They're most effective player for Northside. They're equaling the best player for the side of Washington, even though there's 2 players statistically up there for their side on the attack. Pookie's got great crosshair placement. You could tell there's a big skill behind this player. But unfortunately, it's just a Jet, and the Jet doesn't have the utility to extend for the team. It doesn't have the ability to close the gap perfectly. And for a map like Split, that's very difficult to counteract defensively. The Bladestorm, though, it gets kills, and it's doing it very well for Pookie. That's now their second in this round. Washington, though, in this post plant, can choose to separate themselves from this spike and go off towards alley instead. While you do have to be very careful about that alley, you can just guiding light yourself on out and just buy enough time to go from there. One chance and one chance only for Northside to defuse there. And perfect timing by Washington denies all of that with just the initiating power of your Sky behind it.
Yeah, and I thought that Northside might have been able to sneak that round away. They played it well. They read it perfectly. They knew that both of those players were at that defender spawn area. But that Sky Flash, too quick, too powerful, and executed too perfectly by Udu right there. 14-4 for them. Sky and Cypher both have their ultimates back yet again. You know, Raze and Viper not so far behind, sitting at 7 out of 8, 7 out of 9. But I mean, for Northside High, it's almost become kind of a very tough hill to climb now at this point. You know, at the bare minimum, or at the best, this is a 9-3 half for you. At the worst, it's 10-2. But I mean, it's going to be a slow push. You see they're reading the A push. Let's see if they can maybe win some of these fights.
A lot of information being gathered off of Aquaboy actually putting Util off on this A side towards ramp. Util not just only gets them 1 kill, but gets Naughty now their first kill. They'll take down Udu immediately after the fact. It's Nix and Udu off the board for Washington High School. 2 very influential players and 2 very important agents as well. It's going to be something that will be categorically important as they have to decide whether or not to rotate. The decision has been made. The calls come from inside the house. Cramps makes a wonderful flank, catching 2 off guard. Has the assistance from their Raze to catch another one in transition for Northside. And you've got now a man advantage seemingly gathered from nothing for Washington High School, who still have to make the decision, is A site worth it, or do we want to rotate towards B? And B seems to be the decision. The Omen set up a dark cover that makes sure that Alley is impossible to rotate in on that B site. And Pookie, who was trying to play for that long con rotate in from attacker spawn in through A ramp, now unfortunately will have to rotate the entirety of A ramp on off over towards B, as the timing is perfect to catch Game Zone off guard in heaven. Quamps pockets themselves away, and Pookie almost gets caught off guard as well, but Quamps was caught in a reload.
Pookie, definitely the best player you want in this situation, in the 1v2. Definitely possible to take this one home. 1 garage, 1 at new box. But you kind of have to read this situation. You don't have all the time you want on the clock. You have some utility to your name, the updraft with the smokes. But that camera gets the information. It might be over for Northside in this half.
Ooh, still damage can be done. Pookie, very dangerous spot. The showstopper does no ending to this round, nor this half just yet. But Pookie realizes it's making or break it. They have to touch this spike. They have to extend to the space. And look at the speed from Gothic. No time anyways. Pookie was already out of options, but Gothic ensures that the showstopper may not find anything. But I will be remiss if I will fail to get this kill. I'm going to get it with the shorty instead. That is a 10-2 split. The best case scenario for Northside was that 9-3 you highlighted, Jake. It eludes them, and Washington High School go on an unbelievable 9-round spree to close out the first half on attack nonetheless.
Yeah, fantastic showing out of them. I really like the way that they were playing, kind of playing some fantastic fundamental Valorant. I called it out there in the early stages of the half, but you could kind of see what they were doing, mirroring what we see at the higher levels of Valorant, VCT, amateur challengers, anything that you see. They were making the right plays. They have the comp for it. That Omen, that guy can really take a lot of space with those dogs and the paranoia. With the Raze, of course, those blast packs in can be so powerful. And of course, the Viper wall, so impactful from start to finish. You pointed it out a few times there. I really liked what we were seeing. Let's see if Northside can kind of bounce back. A pistol round here is kind of necessary to win the map. Obviously, still a lot more to do after that pistol round, but you are getting the bomb down on that B site.
It's quick, it's speedy, it's exactly what Northside are looking to catch Washington off guard, and this half's going to be very important for them to try to get the early rounds again back under the books. Pookie now the third one credited to them in this half. It'll be Udu now, the only one remaining that has to try to contend with something, and it will be nothing as Pookie actually steps up above and beyond. They know that Bladestorm's this end-all be-all for Northside. It's been so successful for Pookie every time we've seen it get brought forward. At least a kill or an assist for a kill, if not 2 or 3, like we had seen 2 or 3 rounds prior from Pookie at the end of that first half. They know they want to get it charged up, and they're already halfway there. 19 kills, Jake. And Northside are going to have to really rely on that to try to come back now. 7 rounds of buffer room. It's going to be hard, though. They don't really have a true initiator, honestly, Jake. They have the KO, but KO's a supplementary initiator. You need something else there behind it. You need something alongside it. We saw it really well last week, having a breach alongside a KO to assist, and even Arena as well on top of it to try to help yourself out. None of that is here to help Andy, and because of that, it doesn't feel like there's very many chances for Northside to extend safely, and that's just going to be even more obvious when that Sage isn't going to do too much offensively besides be a heal bot for your team and need to go gun up and go crazy on the step in following behind them.
Yeah, it just goes to show, especially on a map like this, how much impact like a drone or a dog can bring to the table, or even a wingman if you want to bring in Gecko. But you kind of need something like that in order to get the space, get the information that you need to get. We kind of see the upside of Sage on a map like this. You throw that wall, but see that little gap might come to bite Northside. But now with Pookie against the world, this anti-eco goes the way of Washington.
They close out and break the mold of Valorant, and that's the second time we've now seen it, and it's the same exact kind of stat line we've seen. It's Northside picking up the first round. They get the pistol. They didn't need to make a big recovery from a 4v5 to manage to secure it. They just do it very cleanly on this B side, attacking. They try the same old thing heading into round 14, and it just, the same amount of success cannot be found. And Northside, they're almost treating the Sage. You could see it in that last round, Jake. I don't want to say that's a sign of things to come. They're almost treating that Sage as an initiator. Poke around the corner, place the ice wall, and hope that Washington don't spray it down in time. That's not the equivalent of a flash. That's not the equivalent of a stun. It cuts off sightline, sure, but you would also do the same thing with an Omen paranoia, with having the ability for a little bit more smokes. And there is no short side on their side. There's an EMP, but KO's pure ability is mostly for that 0 where you can suppress and hot flash once, maybe, but Pookie's extending past that space anyways, and your duelist isn't going to make use of that flash anyways. It's going to be hard pressed for Northside to get through, and we're going to see them get gate kept here for a little bit as the toxic screen is placed here on the A side, and you can see Northside really respecting control over that util.
Washington effectively traps them over here at the A site. You see that Omen sewers. Everybody's reading the A push coming on through. You're stuck main, you're stuck ramps. Andy does pick up a kill, so you have some space toward the top, but you have no way to kind of get out of here. And as Andy goes down, Pookie and Sage, they are truly stuck here. Omen runs away. You do have the route toward the middle of the map to maybe sneak over toward B, but there's still a lot to be done. You got to find a few kills at the bare minimum to even this up. But for me, it looks like Washington could very well have another round on their hands.
Yeah, 4v2 seems quite difficult to come back from, but there is still a substantial chance on the B side if they can isolate individuals extending in towards site. Maybe Quandale Dingle will be the player to look out for Washington, but they're also playing quite slow, quite passive, and waiting for a lot of that utility to be placed down and utilized first. But if it wasn't time going to be the factor for the loss of getting that spike down, it was going to be the players that got there so fast. Look at Washington's tempo for the rotate. Actually utilizing alley, using that mid-split, taking in through ropes, extending through mail, finding that heaven side, back to defender spawn. Washington feel in utter control for this map, Jake. And if this wasn't a best of 1 where you have to go through every map being banned, I would argue this looks like a best of 3 series where the first map is a obvious team's choice. Washington really wanted this map, and if they didn't, they should start wanting it because they look really darn good on it.
Well, they certainly do, and you can see the kind of the set plays they have to work with here. I mean, the Viper wall is going up every single round. It closes off that top heaven area. You can't cross, and also that ramp is cut off as well. You see 3 players attacking this A main area for the side of Washington. They're going in with such confidence. You're forced to use that Sage wall. As Jet picks up one toward the middle of the map, you might want to use that, but you see how it goes. That Sage wall goes up, and it instantly gets cut down by the Washington.
They know that that's their win condition for Northside, to try to get that wall up and be able to retreat backwards. If you disallow that, then you stop the transition, the retreat, and the rotate. You net yourself free kills. The snake bite alone does it, so they can't rotate through attacker spawn. Combo with the fact that they're pinned in, you would maybe assume a corner dog bites back, but this corner dog unfortunately hasn't been able to do much biting throughout the entirety of that map, so they don't have any room to fear that anymore. If you keep them at further than arm's reach, they can't reach you anyways. And that was the problem in an eco round versus the SMGs and rifles that were being brought forward by the Washington side. Just a dismantling of what was being brought forward. This is exactly what you would want to see a team do successfully. Maybe see them continue to play that map. I guess Split's not highly liked by a lot of teams, but if Washington really like it, I'm not going to complain whatsoever about that, Jake. They just looked in control, and they dominated the first half on a side that's not expected to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if Northside are able to pick up a couple more rounds, I mean, you never know in that offensive end what they can do on that defensive side, or if they can make something happen on the defensive side, maybe some more things happen in that offensive side. But for Northside, I say do more of maybe that VOD review. You have this VOD now to look at, and I say you go back on that and maybe learn from there. There's a lot of Valorant left to be played here at VESL, and on the Washington side, I say you do more of that same. Keep mirroring those comps that you are used to seeing here in the VCT if you can pull that off. Like you said before, a lot of these comps are based off of comfort picks and such, but Washington look fantastic. Hope to see more of them in the future.
It's going to be very important to see how they progress, how they evolve. I'm excited for it. But before we get on into the next game, we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll have that one up and running shortly. Stay tuned for more action here from the VESL. Welcome back, everybody, to the VESL. We're back in with more Valorant action and on the same exact map we just came from here, Jake, because it seems like the teams really want to see us on Split, but this time, two new teams, the one we were really excited for coming into this one since we had so many expectations from the week prior in their performances. It's Havelock facing off against New Bern.
Yeah, these are two teams that we saw last week. Both played relatively solid. It's kind of hard to judge the matchups because once these two teams play each other, it's kind of tough to read compared to how they played against other teams, but they are going to be ready for agent select just in a moment here. So let's see how they want to play this split.
Yeah, we saw a very interesting agent selection for split in our game prior. I hope to see maybe something either completely different or maybe in line for what we saw, Washington bring to the table. As you can ignore the teams at the top of the screen there. That is not who they are. There we go. It's Havelock and New Bern up onto the roster. McLard, who we did see actually on that Omen last week as well, if I recollect correctly, is back into it again, where my dad relicks the Yoru. Spooners on the Sova. Just Grace for that KJ. And then we see the Sky step into place. That will be Cyborg. Tiger stepping in for New Bern. For Havelock, Trashboat, Enigmatic, Feasible Cow, Gangi, and 4chan Mao. No one's locked in anything just yet. But New Bern, they know what they want to bring. And I may be wrong about this, but I think this is the same thing they brought. Was it Ascent last week where we saw New Bern? I think we actually saw them on two maps. It might be the exact same agent selection we saw them bring.
Well, I do remember kind of harping on the point that they only brought Yoru to the table, and that's not necessarily a regular set duelist. Normally we see the Jet or the Raze be that main duelist with the Yoru kind of supporting that as an initiator / duelist hybrid, but this time around, they are going to be doing similar thing here. And I'm surprised to see the Yoru on Split, to be completely honest. But I think Yoru is very powerful if you can play him correctly. So interested to see kind of what they want to do here. On the other side, we got some more to talk about. We got the Cypher. We have the Sage. We got the Phoenix as well. Yeah, or no, maybe it is. We will see it as it gets locked in.
They locked it in at the final moment. It's a breach. They baited us with the Sage. Maybe they watched the game prior there, Jake, and were like, maybe we can bring out the Sage wall and we'll actually use it down in mid, and we'll actually lock down the rotate. No, it's a breach, which is a very good initiator for this map, considering the alleys and corners and places you have to step and extend in from. We talked about how good that is on Sunset before. We talked about how good it is on pretty much every map, but really so on this map. It's hard to find many maps that breach can't work with. But when you have to get into A side of the attack, when you got to step out into heaven on the B sites, when you have to get escaping into mail and out of mail, breach's utility is king, and you're gonna have to rely on that pretty heavily. There it is, Gangi up on that breach, the KJ for Enigmatic, the Phoenix for Trash Boats, and we're seeing two very different duelist options and two non-status quo duelist options for both of these teams, Jake.
Well, me personally, I know this might be kind of a hot take, but I do think that Phoenix can be powerful, similar to Yoru if used correctly. 6 orbs is all it takes for that ultimate, and that ultimate, that run it back, is kind of powerful if you really think about it. It turns into a 6v5 situation very quickly. So, I like the Phoenix maybe a little bit more than the Yoru, but it's kind of up to execution to see what kind of pans out here. Hopefully they have an idea for how they want to hold down mid, that being New Bern, because as we saw in last game, middle can be so powerful if abused by the offensive end. We see Sky using that flash to get the information on if they're there or not, but nobody's home. Havelock is in that B main area, and we should be seeing an execute very shortly here.
Trashboat gets the boomerang, tries to curve ball out as well to make sure that they can get some flashes working for him, but they'll set up the fast lane instead. Trashboat relying on Enigmatic, get the pickup onto the Yoru, where's my dad. Gangi even further beyond that, getting a second to their name. McLaurin up in rafters, securing 2 frags on the subs before eventually falling in what was a 3v3 for just an area moment. Quickly falls back to 3-on-2 with the player of Trashboat, your Phoenix, healing back up with their Molly, utilizing their util in the selfless manner, keeping themselves alive, which is the right thing to do when you have that control of space and you're in this post plant where every single number counts. Just Gray, she cannot find the safe space on site. Spooner's not able to get the damage off towards the two players behind Pillar, but Trash Boat will eventually fall, and a perfectly timed double swing from Havelock's two remaining players secures the final kill they need in that first round.
I mean, I love to see a good old 3-2-1 peak out of the Havelock squad. We saw them playing fantastic last week, I'm pretty sure, as well, against West Craven, I think it was, on Bind. So if they can take down West Craven, we saw how powerful they can be as well last week. So this might be a tall task for New Bern as well. They did have their shining moments there on Ascent. Not sure exactly who they played, but we did see some highlight potential from them. Not sure they took home the win here, but Havelock, they get that pistol round, and kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, this split is going to be a very defensive-sided map, at least from what we've seen in the VCT. So let's see if you can kind of replicate that here for New Bern, maybe find a couple rounds on the board. But so far, that pistol round going to be going the way of Havelock.
It's a status quo to see split fall to that defending side, but right now we're seeing Havelock under control, which is expected, but it's not off the back of SMGs for your normal buy up for round 2 to get your bonus, your freebie afterwards. No, it's still Ghosts. It's still a very managed position for Havelock. They don't want to get too aggressive. They don't want to, overstay their welcome. They're relying on Gengi purely off the back of a Ghost to get 4 out of the 5 kills in this round. And with Spooners now the only one remaining, a Spectre, yes, in their hand. Maybe you say New Bern have something they're looking to cook up here in the kitchen. But if there's anyone that can cook and heat things up, it's Phoenix to do so. From the ashes, it's Trash Boat. Down goes Spooners, and that weapon's collected. And when you force up with any player on New Bern's side, like Spooners did the round prior, you're now making sacrifices for the rest of the team heading into this next round where you should have had rifles coming across the board to go against the now rifle buy of Havelock, who saved in round 2, but you don't. And the team is going to have to buy up SMGs across the board, bar maybe 2 that can get rifles. One of those will be a Phantom, the other one, Cyborg's still trying to decide what they really want here.
Yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily see those pistol buys on the round 2 after winning that original pistol, but it pays off in this situation for Havelock, like you were kind of pointing out there. Now New Bern, not necessarily with the funds to get the Vandals, get the Phantoms, and now Havelock in the upper hand here in round 3, which is most certainly something you do not want to see if you are New Bern. Like we said before, they're on the defender side. They have this Killjoy utility at the A site. And they are going to be going this way, but how do you react to the push is the question. Sova gets the info, but you got to maybe find a kill off the back of it.
Chan opens up. It's the first blood off towards Grace, who unfortunately could not survive in towards screen. That security side entrance from defender spawn. 3 players are inside tower, 1 more removed, and another one vacated from the premises. It's Spooners off the board again. It's New Bern are now left with only 2 players remaining. Your Yoru of choice and your Omen of McLaurin, who is able to isolate the player of Trash Boat. But any success is short-lived as Feasible Cow refrags it back quickly, leaving just Where's My Dad 46 left. I wonder more specifically, where's the rest of the team? They're in the afterlife. You'll be joining them. And it's a 3-0 start for Havelock, who are, like we mentioned, kind of riding the momentum of not buying in round 2, able to have rifles in round 3, and not face an actual rifle team of New Bern in round 3. And this is a timeout that should never have needed to be called, but a right timeout because of the choices they made. They have to decide where to go from here, Jake, since the decisions they made in round 2 to buy, and the weird buy they had to do in round 3 because of that, and the nothing burger of a buy they're going to have to do for this round.
Yeah, and I do like to see the timeout from the side of New Bern. Timeouts aren't necessarily something... Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily something that we see so often in these matches here, but like you kind of said, if you have one, you might as well use it when you're in a tough spot. And Havelock rattle off 3, call that timeout. Make sure everybody's on the same page because, that 30 seconds is not necessarily enough to get a full game plan in before that round begins. Sometimes you get people talking about the last round, some people complaining about, oh, I died this certain way. Instead, you get 60 seconds. Everybody's on the same page. We got a set play here for round 4. Let's see if New Bern can use this timeout to their advantage here because you do not want to start out or keep going on the wrong foot here on this defensive end. You got to flip the momentum as soon as possible here if you're New Bern.
A lot of New Bern's defensive strategy we've seen from the first 3 rounds, which isn't much to truly say because you're coming into this one without a proper rifle round. It's not the meat, the substance of a defending half for them. But a lot of that's come off of your Sky of Cyborg Tiger looking to control mid, which is good. if you're going to have an agent be here, it should probably be an initiator that can flash out, poke for information, or the Tasmanian Tiger or your Cyborg Tiger, since they're playing the Sky. Haha, funny. Or you know, just try to have a teammate alongside and try to work from there. And if you use your Guiding Light, there's a Paranoia actually not too far away, because your Omen is just a couple feet away from you and could be there to assist you just the same and help you maybe extend after the fact, as well as a Guiding Light does go around Mail. And unfortunately for Cyborg Tiger, it doesn't flash themselves out, but McLaurin and Where My Dad do. 3 kills between them, 4 now made, as both of them get 2 kills apiece respectively, and it leaves just Gangi all by their lonesome, stuck inside Mail, able to send a letter off to Spooners saying, hey, I'll see you in the next round, and has to extend into Space of Heaven, where 2 players lie in wait, and a third quickly joins in to secure their 3rd K, as a full house comes in play between McLaurin and Where's My Dad.
Where My Dad taking a big risk walking through that smoke B main, but it pays off. You pick up Enigmatic with that Bucky in hand, and then you grab that gun, you pick up a second in that garage area, and that kind of cements the round, puts Havelock in sort of a 1v3 scenario. One thing you can't say, you got a lot of ultimates for the side of Havelock. You have the Breach, you have the Phoenix. The Cypher and Omen, maybe not as powerful to make a play, to make an execute on the site. I think that Cypher ultimate's still fantastic, of course. But as soon as you get that Phoenix ultimate up, I feel like you want to use it as soon as possible. You want to run that back and try to already take the steps toward getting a new one. I mean, for now, you're taking that A main space, and it's for free.
Too bad it's space that New Bern are willing to give up. They're acquiescing control of ramp. It's not a problem for them, and Havelock being limited in weapons will have a big problem on their hands by how to close that gap. They'll try to do so instead with their Rolling Thunder from their Breach, and while it did actually find impact in regards to getting them safe space on site, it is not getting them any kills. Instead, it's just damage working for New Bern positively instead. VTOL is in play for Where My Dad. They're going to have to take a couple steps out the other way as well, as Trash Boat is in quite the unfortunate predicament. Has to rotate away and somehow does so well, but it can't keep Spooners out of the kill feed. Down goes your Omen of choice, and the team on site still are lacking that Phoenix with a weapon to have impact in the later stages of this round. Thankfully, the Ghost is still good for it. Has assistance from Gangi, who's now found 2 in the round, and what could have been a really poor spot for Havelock to be in has suddenly changed into a new birth of success, as New Bern failed to retake this site, and a 4th falls in Havelock's favor.
Yeah, and I feel like getting away there from that Phoenix in that top ramp area, such a fantastic play to kind of reposition there toward the main side area, because once you get toward main, it is so difficult for New Bern to cross onto that site. You know, all of them are heaven and screens, so if you get that crossfire, it is almost impossible for New Bern to get toward that spike site unscathed. It pans out perfectly. Shout out Trash Boat, or yeah, shout out Trash Boat. Do they already, or they never used it? My fault. Gangi playing absolutely fantastic. That Breach flash timed perfectly on the drop there, picking up 2. They close out that round. Now New Bern, they have the Sova ult. Not sure if they want to use it to maybe get a pick, slow down that plant, but you see Yoru, this is going to be something to worry about.
Oh, Where My Dad's going to let the Phoenix just pass. This is perfect. The whole team is failing to turn. 2 kills netted because of it. And the relocate out. That is an unbelievable play for Yoru to make, and Where My Dad wants more of the cake here and gets it, a 3rd piece of the pie. Down goes 4chan. Trash Mode has to refrag and go crazy, and does so on the hands of Enigmatic to join in. A full house between them again, as Havelock have had way too many, you could say, of these rounds fall their way purely because of 2 players on their roster, but a win is a win. And it's something that New Bern haven't had the graces to say just yet, only finding their first round win in round 4, and since then, and before then, failing to take down Havelock, especially, and it looks just even harder when they're coming into this one with only 3 rifles and still such a disjointed buy.
Havelock just make things happen. Where My Dad almost does everything there in that round. It seems
Crazy.
Finds 3 with the Bucky, but the support just is not there. There's no trades coming in onto that that final player that ends up killing Where My Dad, and does not pan out to their favor. Feasible Cow going to use that Omen TP to group up with the squad here. No main control. You got the KJ utility here on the B site, but Havelock's going to attack again. I mean, what's working for you might keep working. You just got to play it right. Let's see if they can execute here.
Grace will be forced to fall back. That's the right idea. New Bern realized that the win condition is not to keep them out of sight. It's to buy time. And if they fail to do so, they'll have to play for a proper retake and buy time for the rest of the team to pivot on over and assist for this retake to make sure they have all 5. And that's going to be even more important when they've got a huge player advantage. Where my dad taking down 2 by themselves, eventually falling, yes, but now the rest of the team can extend in towards side, and they do so quite decisively. 4 players left and remaining, and a disjointed buy, no less success off their side. They'll take this one for their 2nd round win, and Havelock attempting to bring speed to the table here, Jake. Fail. Maybe we need to see the A side be taken if they're going to go for these swift rounds, because B has not panned out for them on any of these quick transitions in. Either it's a loss off the back of where my dad hiding in a corner, not checking your corners, or it's where my dad taking out of alley and just really catching players off guard because they are just that high level of a gunner for this team.
No, I mean, they make all the difference there. I mean, they almost do it the round prior. They end up doing it here. They find either 2 or 3 there, and it just completely, it was 2 kills, by the way. You get the wall bang, you get that one on the entry, and it allows the rest of New Bern to completely rotate, to group up toward that defender spawn side area, fly on through, get the trades that go your way, and then it's a 1v4 for that killjoy. So maybe flying through that B site, like you said, not the play to make. Maybe you want to get a little bit of space here toward that mid side, because we all know how powerful that B heaven area is for the defenders. But you're kind of going back to old ways here for Havelock. You take that B main space one last time, and let's see if it's maybe, you know, kind of throwing some fake utility here, or maybe it's a hit yet again. At least you take that B, that middle space, and Trash Boat able to pick up that first blood. The Seekers are popped, so let's see if any rotates come through for New Bern.
Well, the Seekers will all go in through mid. They'll be quickly shot out and removed. It's not too big of an issue, but that paranoia actually sent by McLaurin was quite effective. It was quite chunky in regards to who it managed to get within it, but a couple pre-fires through, a great wall set up by your Phoenix of choice, completely cuts off sight lines, and now New Bern are down 2 players and have to quickly try to claw back that control, where my dad can do it all by themselves. 3 kills, assisted by the flash, and now maybe even a decoy to help out even further. This is exactly what Havelock needed to avoid on the exit out from sewer, and they failed to do so. And now they'll have to collect that spike and get into sight in the next 15 seconds, because time is absolutely not on their side. Where my dad, 4 kills, 4 at Trash Boat, as a Vandal, was able to secure 1 more, but there's no chance to get into sight. They're going to have to hold on to the weapon or be prey to remove yet another one. It's an ace for Where My Dad. And this looks like New Bern have found new life on the map of Split.
Yeah, Where My Dad absolutely heating up right now, 14-6. And just a moment ago, Where My Dad was 7-5. So you use that, your utility, and now you're almost back to another ultimate here. An upside for the side of Havelock is you already do have 5 on that offensive side, which is nothing to scoff at as well. Even if they do lose out here on this attacker side, it's not necessarily a net loss here, because you expect to kind of have some rough rounds here on the offensive end, but you can get maybe a couple more. You're definitely still in the driver's seat, but as we've seen, Where My Dad is absolutely heating up, and Phoenix doesn't get to use that ultimate.
It's a bit unfortunate, but they'll still have it for the next round. They can continue to play off of it. It's the lockdown, though, that Havelock will utilize on this A site, completely forcing every player out. That doesn't stop sight lines. Wait for the Omen dark cover first, Havelock. Your teammate Feasible Cow sets it up. It takes a second to actually pop forward, and instead you've got 3 players in security for New Bern just waiting for you to step into their loving arms. And if you try to step past that archway and go up the ramp instead, you've got to walk into Where's My Dad. And I'm sorry to break it to you, if you got to choose between 3 players and a raid boss, I'm going to pick the 3. But you shouldn't have to make the choice of either. New Bern, what a round to deny success off the lockdown. And Where My Dad has now had this VTOL for like 2 rounds, it feels like, and could have been using it and never has been forced to, because Havelock have been too one-dimensional, it feels like, in the last 3.
Oh, the dink comes through for Where's My Dad. The kill does not get converted, however, so that's a big opener for the side of Havelock. Now you might be able to convert one of these rounds. The raid boss is down, like you were saying. The Phoenix ult is popped, and that B site is here for the taking. One one thing for New Bern, they have the Killjoy ultimate, they have the Sova, and they are going to opt to use it right here. Let's see if they can get anything off the back of it, because they need to kind of find a pick before they enter here, but the lockdown does come through.
Cal will have to wait things out inside garage. The rest of the team will have to repivot in as well. Will 4chan make it? No problem whatsoever. Enigmatic will step forward to grab a rifle. You will see New Bern start to step onto the spike to go for this defuse. Cyborg Tiger forced off for a moment, forced to just spray and pray. Can't see anything, but that's why you've got a team covering fires. Perfection for New Bern. In a 5th round now guaranteed, as we are very well about to end into the second half, maybe even, and that's if Havelock can recover from the 4-round losses they've now given off towards New Bern with no ultimates bar this Neural Theft. And if you had to pick between the Neural Theft and any other ultimate, you would probably pick any other ultimate to have on your team stepping into the final 2 rounds. With the Rolling Thunder 1 pip away, yes, you'll have it heading into the final round no matter what, but you also would like more, and it's just not available to you yet. And New Bern have counteracted nearly everything else you brought to the table. Who's to say they won't do the same thing with the Rolling Thunder?
Yeah, and that lockdown is so perfectly placed at the end of that last round, funneling them all toward that garage side area. They're forced to sneak back out, and they've already expended so much utility to even get on site in the first place. Where my dad going to use that ultimate to find all the information he needs, kind of overcooks there, and now he loses his life. The B heaven area is for the taking, but you see the rotate is quick. You might want to sneak through ropes, and that is exactly what they're going to do.
Falling back though. A good rotate point for New Bern to say, we know it's not be any further. We'll need to now decide if it's going to be the A side. Breach util to stun and concuss Cyborg Tiger, and he really wants to hunt for this kill. Can't collect themselves though to take down Cyborg. Despite the visual acuity they had towards them, Cyborg will re-swing into tower, and Feasible Cow just really in no man's land for tower control. That was an unclaimable position to try to refrag back forward. Cyborg met with the same fate. Players just extending too far out of the comfort zone where they should be. Now Gengi needs to get over to the corner and pick up the rifle. It's right there, Gengi. But unfortunately doesn't seem to realize it, and will rely on the utility instead, which, to be fair, if it gets a kill, it's just as good as any old 5.56 that can pump lead off the other direction. New Bern, with only 2 remaining in a post-plant scenario, will line up for 4chan, and Havelock will not need the Rolling Thunder to find a round win. Finally back in return. They'll have a chance to go 7-5 at halftime, actually having the Rolling Thunder to assist here.
Yeah, and a great bounce back round out of Havelock. They rotate toward A quickly, and it pays off in due time. I mean, a great job slowing down the enemies out of Trashbow and Gengi right there. They had no line to get toward that heaven site, and even the stun there from Gengi to be able to take down that one player in the screens area. Now you have the Rolling Thunder, like you said there, and I feel like you expended on B right here because there's only one Omen to take care of, and the smoke will be able to take that heaven side area and get you that site that you need.
Lauren will unfortunately be in a very concussed state and forced to fall back. It is a total control over the B site that is there for Havelock. Crashboat even removing one player from up inside heaven. Even within the dark cover, sneaking away that kill before it solidifies. Will dissipate, and now they'll have to decide to aggress or fall back in. They like ruthless aggression here, Jake. Trashboat's got 3 to their name. Caught off by McLaren, who now is mollied instead. We'll have to Shrouded step forward. Cyborg Tiger gets themselves into space, but Enigmatic and 4chan make sure that any sort of trial, any sort of danger that could have been there for New Bern to recover in the round is no longer a point of contention. Havelock will transition to defense, 7 rounds to the 5 of New Bern, and it's still anyone's game. What a really great first half of Valorant we saw on the board here.
Yeah, a big start from Havelock and a big closeout from them as well to kind of cement that 7 rounds on the offensive side, which is very much so a great half for them. On the other side, New Bern, they do a fantastic job of getting back that momentum that they lost in the early half off the back of Where's My Dad. We see him with 17 ills right there, and it seemed like half of them or more came from those 4 rounds they were able to pick up in that stretch there toward the middle of that half. Now you got to use that Yoru toward that offensive side utility, which is kind of where he thrives. He's great on the offensive end. That flash teleport combo can be so powerful on the offensive end. Let's just see how they opt to use it. Looks like we got a split here toward A and mid. Where does the first contact come through, though?
My dad, maybe the first player to see any sort of action here. We'll try to clear out the alarm bot, but no, it's Trash Boat. Off screen and off site, it seems, as New Bern will have 2 players fall to their hand. Enigmatic even finding a piece of the pie. New Bern are left with only McLaren and their own KJ of choice. Will Grace be able to do anything here? It's hard to say when the only angle you have to extend into sight here, Jake, is directly into the line of sight of Havelock, who are now not just done with the turmoil of the extension into tower. Instead, they're just going to go ahead and say, we want to fight you up front. But when you do so, you bring this way too close for comfort. And if Just Grace can find Gangi in an isolated 1v1, you've now turned to 4v2 into an even 2v2. With Havelock now struggling about where they should extend out from. Both players in heaven, or technically tower rafter side. They both try to hold in and extend out from this space. It'll be way too one-dimensional. They're going to pivot off to alternative directions, which is the right idea. One in from security, the off over inside of main archway. That gives McLaren straight POV, and now it's just Grace on site. Has to be able to secure this kill. Either of the two. They failed to do so. It's Havelock getting their 8th. In a really good pistol round by all things here, Jake.
Yeah, and a great showing there out of Trash Boat right there to be able to pick up the first couple of bloods there. To kind of slow down that push, we saw it just stagnate completely once that round kind of slows down. Where my dad gets picked up off a great double peek top heaven. So New Bern is just kind of, they're in a tough spot there. They have none of the space that they want. They don't have top ramp. They don't have site control. And it's just kind of a tough uphill battle for the side of New Bern. Havelock doing a great job of bouncing back. We see Trash Boat matching Where My Dad. And now we kind of see the same thing that we saw at the beginning of last half. We get the pistol buy from Havelock to bet on themselves to see if they can have that bonus for round 3. Let's see if it works toward their favor. New Bern going to be flying through this B site, trying to keep these battles close because they have those pistols in hand, but they cannot get through the Cypher trip.
Cyborg Tiger has the ghost in hand, and my dad does not. Instead, it's a sheriff in return. Gangi having to clap back with one of their own, and my goodness, has Gangi come alive for Havelock in the second half for just a few rounds we've now seen for it. Trash Boat has to get a ghost kill up in return. Gangi forcing out util. Where are the shots from the sheriff possibly conceivably coming from? It's Gangi and Gangi only. 4 kills in this round, and a dismantling of New Bern, who once again go full committal for the second round of that half. And now they're going to be in another spot where New Bern have to save. They have to talk about it. They can't play the third. They know they're not going to have rifles. How do they decide to go from here? They can't buy up the same way. They realized that they had to call a time at around 4 in the first half. So maybe we call it in 3. Decide if we force up. I think they go for a save. You either do it in round 2, you do it in round 3, and you bring rifles for round 4. The worst case scenario. But you got 40 seconds to talk it through remaining past this point. I really hope they come to the right decision. But this doesn't tell you anything about how Havelock play this defense, which is so pivotal, considering that you're now 4 rounds behind, Jake, and you don't really know how they're going to play the remainder of this half on arguably the better side of Split.
And I do like the timeout here because you're getting put in a position that you're maybe not as accustomed to. It's kind of hard to read this sort of situation unless you're scrimming and people are doing what Havelock is doing right now, where they buy just the pistols in the second round after that round 1 pistol win. It's kind of hard to make this call. Like you said, do we save? Do we buy here? Do we force up and maybe try to make something happen? It looks like they are going to end on, we are going to force up and try to make something happen, which I don't necessarily hate. Now that you're down 9-5, you don't have a lot of rounds to expend here. And, you know, you were at a point where you were tied at 5-5 here in this game. You end up losing those last 2 rounds here in that half, and that may pay dividends here at this point in the game. You're on that offensive end. You're not very comfortable, and kind of have to win this round if you want to make something happen, because if you aren't able to, that's a big trade there, but if you're not able to win this round, you're put in a very difficult position, potentially more difficult than you are right now. That mid control is so powerful in this situation, but they're going to take the sewers over toward it.
Yeah, you got to rotate. You can't really rely on it here. You don't have the I would say utility to extend this now, as you don't have a duelist that can close that gap quickly. It's going to be very brunt force labor, a grueling endeavor to try to get in through mid, especially when Havelock are putting a lot of manpower there to defend it, and you realize that. The smart decision is made, maybe a little bit slow to have McLaren, you know, step to the opposing side of market and now have to rotate their attack respawn, but plenty of time remaining. You had a minute and a half. You could do as much as you want in that space. You just have to make sure you get to site eventually. There's still plenty of time to do so by the time they arrive with the rest of the team. Flash does extend out from the tower side. Maybe catch Cyborg Tiger off guard. Havelock are really just dumping utility to try to keep New Bern back, and eventually it's not going to work any further, especially if the, you know, straw that breaks the camel's back manages to get yourself a kill in return. Spooners frags down one. Havelock now at a player disadvantage and struggling to keep them away, as every player that is available for Havelock is on this A site, and yet still have no real clue about where New Bern are going to extend from, as they have to step out of the dark cover. Great shot to one. Not sure how it hits, but Enigmatic secures two on the crossfire down below. We'll have to go for more. It gets the third while Paranoia. And Gangi secures. Who else for Havelock? Double digits secured.
And you would have loved to see New Bern make it happen there. We were talking about, you know, what could they do, and they did all they could. Now you can buy this round off the kills you kind of get in that last round, so it's not the worst case scenario, but Havelock still most certainly the upper hand here. They have that Phoenix run it back already. You can see them inching toward those ultimates, very close to that breach. And the Killjoy lockdown, which, as we saw in last half, can be so powerful, especially on that retakes. You can put that one defender spawn side at that B point and in screens as well to kind of get that retake really efficient here. But now for New Bern, you know, it's kind of, you're almost in a do or die scenario here. That Cypher Cam does get the utility, but like we said before, this B point hasn't necessarily been fantastic for either team thus far. You use the run it back to get the info you want, but how do you react off of it is the question.
Ashbelt with the run it back will get a lot of information. That's 4 players that they conceivably spotted, maybe just 3, but the brunt amount of New Bern's assault is inside garage. And from there, you can kind of make ideas about how the team is going to play this one out. You'll rotate in, watch towards mid, secure the fact that there is a very big possibility that Yoru could still TP off towards the B side, but you want to try to get the sideline first and foremost, which you do in fact get. Sending out a mailroom, you see where my dad inside mid gets some damage off even, and now we'll have to help the rest of the team out on A side, because Enigmatic, who was so important to the last round for the crossfire deep on site behind screen, is taken down inside security instead, which gives New Bern the open space to get into sight and get spiked down in a pretty advantageous position. But this post-plant positioning for this default plant they went for, Jake, is so one-dimensional. They all have to stack on site, where Havelock can just go guns up and kill, because there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to conceivably sit behind. There's nowhere that you can truly be safe. You just sit up in rafters and gun them down every angle you see, and the numbers will eventually favor you. Havelock get their 11th, and New Bern will need to start thinking about planting behind New Square and setting up instead off towards A main instead, because that post plant did them no favors.
And I want to point out a great play out of 4chan right there toward the middle of that round. We see where my dad teleport toward the middle of the map, and he TPs toward mailbox after they get stunned by that breach. And once he TPs mailbox, he's kind of in a very good spot if he can get the late pinch going, but Cypher picks it up very quickly. I'm not sure if he had the info that the TP was there. Maybe he gets that audio, but as soon as he picks up that kill, the entire play from New Bern kind of shuts down there. Once the pinch is not in, like you said, that post plant spot is so one-dimensional right there. Everybody's on site. Havelock is very easily able to convert, and now New Bern in a very tough situation. Sky utility does get the information you need. A big kill to where my dad there. You need to convert this first blood into a round win, because things are becoming dangerous.
Lauren, second kill for the round of New Bern. And a lot of damage off towards Bern My Dad, but they're still holding on. But just Grace doesn't have the same luxury. Down they go to the hands of Trashboat. Gangi and Feasible finding kills of their own before Where My Dad's still low on HP. Isolates Gangi and cuts them off guard, leaving just remaining Feasible Count. Can they clutch up a 1v2? It's hard to say. The spike has rotated off towards the B side, and Where My Dad make sure they get there fast. But they will have to maybe wait for their teammate to get there secondarily. As honestly, they're really close to being able to step in that trap wire, but No intel there just yet. Feasible Cow will now know they need to rotate and really take their time in doing so. They have to step through ropes if they want to get there fast. And you can see where my dad is just going to take the right choice, cover mid-market, sit inside, and make sure nobody can step out of ropes, play for time, and even hide within the smoke. Before being caught off guard, what a great hit, actually, from Feasible Cow. But I don't think they're actually playing this truly to win out the round. It was much too slow of a retake for that to be the idea. They'd have to get this kill right about now before extending on towards site. They saw the head, apparently not. And there will be Spooners seeing them instead up towards rafters. It's that peripheral vision that can be the downside of a lot of individuals, and Feasible Cow unfortunately caught off guard by it. Still 11 for Havelock. Give them something, I guess, for New Bern. They're going to have to hopefully have that round be a sign of bigger things to come here, Jake.
And now one thing we got to look at here is how these two teams use their ultimates to themselves, because we have a lot about to come on board. Yoru, Omen, and Sova for the side of New Bern. We got Phoenix, AJ, and Omen for the side of Havelock, with two more coming in very shortly. Gangi 8 out of 9, 4chan 5 out of 6. So this is now becoming an ultimates game, and you use one very early on for the side of Havelock. I maybe would have liked to use that on a retake situation, because now, I mean, New Bern can just wait it out and re-hit it right afterward.
You're not playing to deny them out of sight, right? You're playing to slow them down. That's the end-all be-all for the objective. You could have used that to keep them off of it initially and allow time for your team to rotate, but this doesn't really bring value. And now with the VTOL on board for New Bern, having Where My Dad utilize it, puts them in a spot where you have to pray that Where My Dad gets a bunch of kills, or you have to pray that he doesn't get a bunch of kills. And it really comes down to which team you favor here, as both sides come out fairly even. McLaren, a very dangerous spot, able to secure one more and almost takes down Trash Boat. The Trash Boat has run out of util to heal themselves back up, and yeah, that spray is not going to connect at that range, and McLaren will only need a single bullet to secure. Great round for New Bern, and a big waste of an ultimate for Havelock early, and they're going to call the timeout, which is the right idea, having given now 2 in a row to New Bern. Let's just talk things through. Let's decide, Jake. What can we change? What's different? Where do we sit comfortably here?
Yeah, and I think that lockdown actually gives a little bit of false hope there to Havelock. You pop that ultimate and you say, okay, they're probably not going to be here at A, but they just wait it out, which I think is most certainly the right thing to do. I think any sort of team in that situation, if they want to go A and that lockdown gets popped so early, you might as well just wait behind it and then push afterward. And Havelock thinks that maybe that not going this way, maybe they rotated off of it. And that kind of opens up the site for them in a way, but you still have a utility to use here for Havelock. I think that Breach ultimate is going to be something to look at in the future here. But on the other side, New Bern, the KJ and Sova ultimate, so powerful for these next couple rounds. I think if you're able to use those here and make this 8-11, that's where this really becomes a game here, Scott. And New Bern can very quickly sneak their way back into this one. 7-11 maybe is not as far between as you think it is.
No, and if you can come back from a 9-3 curse, you can surely come back from a 7-11, right? There's still plenty of space for recovery, especially when you look at Havelock coming into this round, where a lot of the decision for this timeout is going to come off the fact that they don't have enough to buy literally everybody something. They have ultimates, and they're going to have to think about what they want to use this round. Is this possible? And it's going to come off the first blood. If they win first blood, the round is feasible. If they get a second kill after that, it's time for ultimates to save grace. It's time to toss a rifle to a teammate behind you. But if they give it up, like we see here for the duelist on duelist battle and Trash Boat losing out on it, this is where you sit and say, Havelock, maybe we hold on to the ultimates for this round. 11-8 still just as good as 11-7. Maybe not as good, but it's still pretty darn good. And we'll just play for it instead, is where my dad goes crazy again. They just used the VTOL, by the way, and they already are just 2 pips away from getting it again, thanks to the high success in this round, and of course closing out the remainder of that last round, getting kills off the back of it and through tower.
Now a 2v5 situation for Havelock they most certainly do not want to be in. I feel like at some point you might have to opt to save with the rounds you've lost recently, but it doesn't look like they are going to do so. Gangi going to try to make something happen, is able to find one, but so much more on the site, and he's going to opt to use the ultimate right there, which is a very bold move.
Yeah, a bold decision. We'll have to see how it pans out for Gangi. Flashes in the util dump. You basically burned every single piece of your kit, bar your molly, and still decide to do nothing with it past the fact. Gangi is just dumping it and hoping that they'll get it back by the time that round 13 comes around for themselves. if they let New Bern also climb in to really tie the game up. Should never be the reliant point for you. And maybe this is Gengi kicking themselves in the rear after the fact, something to look at later and kind of and evolve their game for. But that's now 2 ultimates we've seen that Havelock have utilized in these last 3 rounds that have now gone New Bern's way, that seem more so expunged rather than calculatively used in any capacity. One's the lockdown, that one obviously for the Rolling Thunder. Trash boats can be used anywhere. It does not matter. You use it where you can. It's a Phoenix ult. You use it for information, use it to fight. It does not matter. The other 2 core components of this defensive kit for Havelock without much impact.
We're seeing a very light hold on the side of A for Havelock here. New Bern could very easily kind of sneak their way onto the site. Obviously, you got to fight through the Phoenix, but you can most certainly get that site control. You do have the KJ utility at Heaven, but you see New Bern expend the lockdown. Let's see if they can convert off the back of it, because they should be able to get this bomb down relatively easily.
Yeah, and with that soft hold you had highlighted on that A site, there's not too many players they had to force back. But at least it's giving them that safe space they want to work with and go from that point onwards. Grace will go ahead and place this spike in the same default we saw them do previously. And this is where we're going to see New Bern evolve the game for what they had previously and hope that Havelock don't just go for the same rafters play up inside tower, with the obvious weakness of their kits being the semi-soft buy they have going for themselves. Outlaw in the hands of Gengi and mostly pistols for pretty much everybody else. No, sorry, it's a Marshall with a skin in the hands of Gengi. Mostly pistols for everybody else. It's going to be hard pressed to get those kills you would really highlight from that poor plant position. New Bern have no problems just cutting down all enemies that push in their direction. Hip fire attempts for Trash Boat and Ignatic falling just moments prior, and New Bern around win as expected. They're up to 9. Havelock have themselves 11, still in the lead, but giving 4 in a row after you get 4 in a row isn't always the best look.
Yeah, you're kind of in the same situation you were in at the end of the half, and this is where things really start to dial up here for both of these teams. I mean, for New Bern, I always like to point out the ultimates, and I feel like I've been doing it so much, but so much good utility on the side of New Bern to make this a 10-11 game. You have that orbital VSAP from Yoru, who's been absolutely decent so far, 25 and 16 for Where My Dad. We've been talking about them so much. They're going to use it real early on to get this utility, and I like to see this. A light push out from New Bern on that B side, but the trades are there, and you may not get the utility you would like from that Yoru. You maybe want a little bit more.
Successive kills, though, for Havelock. Gets them still in a spot where they can recover. Grace is in arguably the worst spot imaginable for a player inside mid. McLaurin can take that space. Trashboat sees them. And that gives so much control. If McLaurin had just taken a step back, they get Grace out, but they sacrifice the Omen. That's half initiator, half controller. That's so important for any side control and any side take now for the remainder of this round, as New Bern will have to rely on a KJ and Sova. A recon bolt maybe can force sightlines elsewhere, but this is a duelist of Trash Boat who is quite good. And a KJ who has the utility to lay in and wait with, especially if they just leave it on the A side. That means if you rotate off through sewer, it's a lost cause anyways. This is Havelock's best chance possible to get their 12th. This is even territory for a run it back. I would not be surprised to see Trash Boat go for it. Very low in HP, gets their 3rd kill. They don't need it, baby. 4 now for Trash Boat in the round. And a match point now for Havelock to send this series out.
And that's the pop-off moment that Havelock needed to see out of Trash Boat right there. We saw some absolutely highlight plays from them earlier on in the game, and now 30 and 14 for Trash Boat turns up when it matters most and gets that 4K. That really pushes Havelock to that match point here. Now New Bern, their entire momentum has been absolutely stifled. They waste the Yoru ultimate. The Sky ultimate doesn't necessarily pan out as well, and now you have a powerful Sova ultimate, but not as much in the Omen, and you go back to that default A, and Killjoy from Havelock has done such a good job of placing their utility in solid situations for this site. Run it back gets popped, and now the fights are going to come through.
Yeah, it's fallback plan for New Bern, really being gatekept by Enigmatic, who's been so good early in this half on this A site. It's kind of fallen off to be an opposing player elsewhere, now falling back to their roots, and pretty good job at it. Gets their 1-for-1 trade, does get refragged by Grace, but Trash Boat Securing yet another one puts New Bern now at that player disadvantage, and despite the fact a spike will go down, this isn't planted for your 2 players inside of main. You've got a flanking Gengi. Do you know you don't? Gengi secures one in a second, and it's just Grace alone. Flashes galore, util spent. Grace can't flick in time. It's Trash Boat with the final, and Havelock with the final round needed to take us out of this series. They'll trade over who it goes to. Just really spread the love here, Havelock. 13-9 against New Bern, who feel the burn in that map there. Jake, I mean, a really close affair on split, what we would like to see. But Havelock, they are much better at recovering from their mistakes in the later stages than we saw New Bern do early. Kind of dug too big of a hole and couldn't really climb 100% out of it.
Yeah, and you know what we saw there was a very back and forth game. Some high momentum out of both of those teams, but Havelock come out on top, and they're looking to be a very solid team here within this season of VESL, and I'm very excited to see them play in the future, play some very solid rosters, because I think they have what it takes to maybe be one of the better teams here in this region within the season as well. So great to see them again. Hope to see them more in the future, but we do have a couple more games to go over today, but we just have the highlights from one of those games. We got Jones versus West Craven, and that did end up being a 5v4 situation, but we have some pop-off plays to go over with you guys.
Yeah, it's called highlights for a reason, right? This one comes in round 2. We saw just how good Shadowheart has been previously, and you're looking at a 2v1 and you know it's a highlight. You got to think Gil's maybe popping off here, and that will be very darn close to the case. Shadowheart managing to secure that one up, gets the defuse freely for that Jones Senior side. And talk about a team for Jones Senior as well. When we saw them, they were very, very impressive. Especially, I think we saw them on Sunset. Was the map we saw them on, if I recollect correctly? Crumbs played the Gecko. It may have been Bind, actually, because I recollect Crumbs was playing the Gecko pretty much on every map that we can conceivably see Jones Senior be into. And it's one of those like comfort pick scenarios that you would have. 4K for Gil in this round. Still, Jones Senior's in the lead, sitting up 4-2 early. This is the type of thing you would expect. Wow, Pluto as well, if you want to mention another player. Pluto, so darn good.
Yeah, I mean, in a 5v4 situation, obviously West Craven not how they want to be playing here today, but it just goes to show how good they can be to be able to take a few of these rounds. I mean, if you're Jones Senior and you're in a 5v4 and you're only up 5-3, I'm sure you start to get a little bit worried at some point that, hey, we might be losing some of these rounds. We got to make sure to reel this back in. You see Mercy Pups do a great job of doing that right there, but as you kind of said before, ETV Pluto V3, absolutely a lot of firepower here for the West Craven roster, and let's see if Pluto clutches up this 1v2 situation. Doesn't get the info on Crumbs right there, but both of these teams, obviously West Craven not at full potential here. That was a close one. But if these two teams played in the future, I could imagine it would be an absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, Pluto's ridiculously good and very comfortable on that Raze role. We've seen him on Raze multiple times now. I think that it's something you would really try to look forward to when it comes to seeing them in a game, and it's very unfortunate we don't get to see the full team kind of behind that and get to watch the game because of that. But Jones Senior is probably one of the scariest teams to look out for. We've not seen them lose, we've not seen them struggle most of the time, and even if it is a 5v4, the result is Jones Senior's dominating. 12-4, is that the final score line? Will it be the 13th? We see that the spike does go down for them. And when you know that all 4 players are coming from the exact same angle, aka defender spawn in through Metal Hall, and then not even through Metal Door, they're going to go out through Elbow instead. Maybe feel a little bit hard pressed for that. There's a detain on top of the Thrash. If you step into a final round and you've got that up, it's hard, and there it is. West Craven, just one remaining. And unfortunately, they will have to roost and rest their runes elsewhere. 13-4, the final scoreline for that one, which is actually pretty darn similar to West Craven's scoreline against New Bern, of all teams. We don't have the highlights for that one, but 13-5 for that one, as West Craven made up for the loss there against Jones Senior and actually take down New Bern, who apparently it's just not their day, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple tough situations, another 5v4 match for them, but it goes to show West Craven able to shoot against the best of them. Some absolutely fantastic matches, and I'm interested to see how this pans out. I'm excited to, we've been watching some of the same teams here back to back, and it's interesting to see how they play versus the other rosters here in the VESL Southeast Division. So like I keep harping on, it's going to be fun to go through this whole season and watch these teams more. But that's going to do it for us today at VESL. We had some fantastic matches today, and I hope we got some fantastic ones next week, Scott, because we've been having a great time.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. A big shout out to all the teams showing up every week and participating in their games, even if you're down a player, and giving it your heart and giving it your all and playing through it instead of just saying, okay, FF. It's good practice, right? It gives you something at the end of the day. But that's it for us. Make sure to come back next week. Stay tuned for more from the VESL. We'll see you guys there.